Let's start with something that should make your skin crawl. Look around. Really look. Not with your habits, with your presence. Do you see it? The streets are filled with bodies that move, speak, blink. But the light behind their eyes is gone. Faces simulate emotion. Mouths echo second-hand opinions. Every gesture feels recycled, familiar, mechanical. The illusion of life wrapped around an absence so dense it suffocates. Most people you pass every day aren't feeling anything real. They don't believe in anything they weren't told to believe. They don't think. They repeat. Their thoughts aren't theirs. Their outrage isn't theirs. Their identity is built from headlines, algorithms, and social panic. Now imagine for a moment, if you could look behind their eyes, what would you find? A wasteland, dry, cold, silent. A mental desert where once there was reflection, contradiction, breath. This is the horror no one dares name. People are more afraid of silence than they are of lies. More afraid of stillness than they are of manipulation. More afraid of awareness than they are of sleep. They reach for distraction like oxygen. They panic when the signal dies. They don't know how to exist without being fed. Watch them. When the Wi-Fi drops, when the phone battery dies, when the noise is gone and the mirror appears, you'll see it. The twitch, the ache, the terror of confronting themselves. And this is not poetic exaggeration. This is a real epidemic. Not one of viruses, one of consciousness. An epidemic that turned attention into the new oil, that made silence unbearable, that replaced depth with dopamine, and meaning with performance. Ask yourself, how many people do you know who can sit alone in a room without reaching for a screen? How many can look inward and not run? What would happen if we turned it all off? No scrolling, no noise, no fake connection, just you and your mind. Would you survive it? Because here's the truth. We're surrounded by humans who only act human, but behave like perfectly trained machines. And I don't say that with superiority. I say it with fear. Because some days I feel it too. That ache in the gut. That whisper inside. You're becoming what you swore you'd never be. You're not the center of your life anymore. You've become a replaceable part in a system that doesn't care if you're conscious, awake, or even alive, as long as you keep scrolling. Ever notice how you need more stimulation each year to feel less? How your boredom arrives faster, your focus vanishes quicker, your mind tires easier? That's not evolution. That's erosion, not a glitch. A design. A silent algorithm shaping you with every click, every polite conversation, every meaningless post carefully scrubbed of discomfort. And here's the part no one wants to admit. Every time you give in to the noise, something in you dies. A flicker of clarity, a thread of inner fire, a voice that once asked, "Why?" before doing what everyone else was doing. This doesn't care how smart you think you are. It doesn't care how many books you've read, how woke you feel, how convinced you are that you're different. If you're not resisting this actively, you're decaying passively. Thinking is not a luxury. It's an act of survival. Look closely. You'll see entire generations of consciousness outsourced to machines. People who can't tell information from wisdom, noise from truth, identity from branding. Humans under the illusion of being informed, while their ability to question rusts quietly beneath the surface. And if that doesn't make your chest tighten, it's already too late. Because the first symptom of this epidemic is indifference. But if something in you still flinched, if this feels personal, then something inside you is still alive. And that means there's still a way back. But let me be clear. You will not wake up by accident. You don't stumble into self-awareness. This system was built to keep you moving, but never arriving, consuming, but never reflecting. Here's the question that separates the awake from the programmed. What would happen if you stopped? If you cut the feed? If you stopped chasing more and started facing what's already inside you? Would you be able to hold your own gaze and not run from the void? Because that void, the one you keep trying to distract yourself from, grows in silence. And once it spreads far enough, there's no turning back. You become another echo, another face in motion, still breathing, but only out of habit. Now tell me, are you going to be one of them? Or are you still willing to reclaim what's left of your soul before the world finishes sculpting you into a perfectly obedient machine? Because here's the truth no one wants to face. This isn't happening by accident. You didn't just get lazy. You're not just distracted. There's an entire industry engineered to manufacture your apathy. A faceless machine, invisible, precise, designed to turn your consciousness into a product. And no, this is not a metaphor. This is a transaction. Your attention is bought, sold, measured. Your focus is tracked like currency. Every second you're online is worth something to someone, except you. Have you noticed the unease that hits every time you open an app? That sick blend of urgency and emptiness? That twitch when a notification lights up your screen? That's not a glitch. That's conditioning. You've been trained like an animal, fed dopamine crumbs with surgical precision, reward loops disguised as connection, intermittent validation disguised as care. You're not being informed, you're being managed. And like a dog waiting for the next command, you come back, again and again, and again. This is the new face of ignorance, not born from isolation, but from saturation. You don't need to burn books anymore to kill a mind. Just drown it in noise. Knowledge has become aesthetic, a performance, a quote for your bio. Not something you digest, but something you wear. And do you know why you never go deeper? Because real understanding requires three things: time, silence, will. And those three things are incompatible with the digital cage you now call your life. Don't flatter yourself. Even your resistance has been diluted. How many times have you sworn to disconnect, only to find your hands betraying you within minutes? How many times have you put the phone down, only to grab it again before your thoughts even had a chance to breathe? That's not weakness. That's programming. Imagine your mind as a garden. Fertile. Alive. But every notification is a weed. Every headline a parasite. And if you don't clear the soil, eventually nothing true will grow. You won't think. You'll echo. You won't believe. You'll repeat. You won't live. You'll perform. You think you're deciding. But most of the time, you're just reacting according to a script you didn't write. If that feels like an exaggeration, then explain why your stomach tightens when someone mentions deep thought. Why solitude makes you restless. Why silence feels dangerous. It's because, somewhere beneath the weeds, you suspect there are no real roots. Just fragments of other people's thoughts stitched into something you've been calling you. And here's the most insidious part of the trap. They convinced you that being informed is the same as being awake, that data equals discernment, that access equals freedom. But intellectual freedom doesn't come from knowing a lot. It comes from knowing how to question everything, especially the things that make you feel safe. It comes from holding questions without needing to fix them with quick answers. It comes from letting doubt live inside you long enough to grow into something real. But today, doubt is treated like a virus. Uncertainty is weakness. Every nuance is a threat, so everything must be simplified. Reduced, packaged, branded. The world wants you to react in hashtags, to speak in headlines, to believe in slogans instead of thoughts. Because in a system that worships speed, the slow burn of reflection is considered subversive. And if you dare to pause, to really pause, you'll notice something terrifying. Your silence unsettles people more than your noise ever did. That's when you'll realize how deeply addicted the world is to reaction, how violently it rejects stillness, how it punishes anyone who doesn't immediately pick a side. So stop and look at the paradox we're trapped in. Never in history have we had more access to knowledge, and never have we been so incapable of turning it into wisdom. Because information without discernment isn't power, it's poison. A slow internal corrosion masked as progress, and if you still have any spark of lucidity, let yourself feel the nausea. Don't run from it. Don't drown it in another scroll, another quote, another cheap fix of inspiration. Let it ache. Let it breathe. That discomfort is proof that you're still alive inside, that your consciousness hasn't been fully pacified. But if you keep avoiding it, if you don't make the radical choice to become the filter of your own mind, then you will be swallowed by the noise, just like the rest. Now imagine this. You're walking through a city at sunset. The buildings rise like monuments, glowing windows lit in gold. At first glance, each window tells a different story. But look again. They're all the same. Same anxious eyes. Same restless scrolling. Same hunger for a validation that never arrives. Same faces rehearsing how to be human. The same rehearsed gestures. The same consumption rituals, looped with mechanical precision. A choreography no one remembers agreeing to. And yet, everyone performs it flawlessly. You ever wonder how we got here? It wasn't sudden. It didn't arrive like a storm. It came one tiny surrender at a time. Every time you chose entertainment over reflection. Every time you preferred someone else's confidence over the tension of your own doubt. Every time you reached for certainty because you were too tired to ask real questions. That's how you build a culture that looks alive on the outside, but feels like cardboard on the inside. This isn't just personal. It's a social disease, a cognitive virus, and every turned-off mind becomes a carrier. Because the moment you stop thinking, really thinking, you become a transmitter for whatever sounds comforting enough to keep you numb. It doesn't matter if it's wrong. It doesn't matter if it's dangerous. As long as it gives you something to say that feels right, you'll repeat it like gospel. And now, maybe you feel it. That chill, that quiet discomfort, that fragile moment when your own consciousness starts to see its own edges. No one is immune to this. Not even you. Not even now. You're just one decision away from letting autopilot take the wheel again. One click, one shortcut, one dopamine loop from vanishing into the same noise you swore you were resisting. So the question becomes, will you vanish or will you fight? Will you echo or will you reclaim your voice? Because in a world built on distraction, thinking is not neutral. It's an act of war. And rebellion has a cost: solitude, discomfort, the loss of easy belonging. But what it gives you is priceless. It gives you lucidity. Something no system, no trend, no culture can manufacture or steal. And if you're still here, still reading, still facing this without flinching, it means something in you refuses to be domesticated. You may not know how to name it. You might even be ashamed to admit it. But there's a whisper inside you that knows. You were not born for this illusion. You were not made to live as a simulation of a self. That whisper is dangerous, because once you start listening to it, everything starts to crack. Familiar routines stop feeling safe. The people you trusted seem unfamiliar. Even your own beliefs begin to fracture. And yes, it's terrifying. Because when lucidity breaks through, the first thing it does is destroy. It pulverizes the illusion that you were safe in your ignorance. But let me tell you something most people are too afraid to say. That destruction isn't the end. It's the beginning. Because when everything false burns away, there's finally space for what's real. When you no longer depend on others to tell you who you are, you can begin the long, brutal journey of discovering it for yourself. When you stop consuming other people's opinions like a starving beggar picking scraps from the floor, you begin to generate your own thoughts, your own fire. And when you finally sit in the silence, without distractions, without lifelines, without anesthesia, you realize the mind is yours. And thinking is not decoration. It's survival. If you've made it this far, it means something inside you is shifting. Maybe you feel it in your chest right now. That quiet, electric vertigo. It's the edge of something uncharted, your own judgment. But if you cross that line, don't expect applause. Don't expect validation. Society doesn't reward those who wake up. It punishes them. Because a world built on sleep cannot tolerate someone who sees. You'll lose things, people, comforts. You'll be called strange, cold, distant, arrogant. Let them. While they drown in collective sedation, you'll carry something they can't steal. The ability to look at the world and not swallow it whole. The ability to feel when everything around you is numb. The ability to question, even if no one follows. So here's the challenge I leave with you. One that won't fade when this video ends. It will haunt you every time you're tempted to distract yourself from yourself. Ask yourself this before you sleep. Did I think something today I wasn't taught to think? Did I feel something I wasn't told to feel? Did I own my mind, even for a moment? If the answer is yes, even once, you're resisting. And in a world engineered to break your autonomy, that is an act of quiet heroism. And if anything I've said has unsettled you, even slightly, share this with someone who still shows signs of life. Someone who still looks up from their screen long enough to ask if this is all there is. This conversation can't be buried under another scroll. Not if we want to stay human. If you've made it this far, it means something in you refused to look away. Something in you still resists. And now I ask for one more act of courage. Leave a comment with this phrase: silence is my resistance. Let's see how many of us are still left. How many still refuse to become functioning ghosts in the machinery of distraction? And if you want to keep tearing down this illusion with me, subscribe. Not out of habit, not because the platform tells you to, but because you're tired of being spoon-fed what to think. Here, you won't find recycled affirmations or synthetic comfort. Here, you'll find discomfort. And maybe finally, a bit of truth. Uncomfortable. Because it demands something from you. Because thinking, even when it hurts, is still the only real way to stay alive. Now close your eyes for a second. Breathe. And listen. Beneath the noise, beneath the habits, beneath the roles, there is something that hasn't been touched. A core, a flame, a question that never died. Open it like you would a forbidden book. And remember, the more you dare to stare into the void, the more you'll see it was never empty. It was waiting. For you. Thank you for staying until the end. Thank you for daring to question. Maybe we'll meet again. Maybe not. Some paths can only be walked alone. But if you choose to return, I'll be here, quietly lighting fires in the minds that still know how to burn. Until then, remember this. Thinking is resistance, and you've just begun your own silent revolution.